Those things in my mind, I just think it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in that coffee, senior. Oh, I know, we took an apartment in New Jersey, and so it was a going away party, and he came to the party, and we met, and it was lightning.
Isn't that
one of those things?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I guess I won't be a doctor after all, I'm going to keep on nursing. So we went to South America for a year and stayed hitchhiked. And his total expense for the trip was $500 for a year hitchhiking. And other ways that he managed. As he crossed the border in those days, they knew how to exchange money, and he knew all the ins and outs of that. So he got down from New York, Labor Day one year in New York. He arrived back Labor Day the next year.
Well, that must have been a fascinating trip.
He did. He had that written up one time, and then I gave it to the paper in Oyster and they didn't write it up, and they just wrote it. You didn't think I was any interest. So it took me the rest of my life to get it back out of it. And he would tell me little snatches of what he did and where he'd stay, and he had a few pictures he brought.
Did you write that down? About his trip right now?
I have no visible record of any of it. I can tell my children a little more because they have some put away here somewhere. But I don't know where it is. Now, where do we go from here?
Well, shall we go back to her
October.
beginning in the public health here in Upson County?
How about that?
Okay, that's like 1938. Okay.
Now, before that, you'll have to get it from the state government. Because I know Christine Cole was here, but I don't know how long. I know Dr. Van, somebody was the head of the health department, and his head nurse, and has a picture in the lobby of the health of the Capitol. She has her picture there too, and she was wonderful. She came down and tried to advise me, and she saw I was taking so much time away from my family, and she said, "Can't you just go home to your family and relax?" I said, "I can't with 120 patients with syphilis and another 120 patients with tuberculosis, and they had to have clinics, and I had to write up histories, and I had to do all of that in that little office up there in the State Highway Building."
And so, where was that located?
On Andrews Drive. It's still
where
there.
it's the present location. Okay.
There was the health department that was on one side, and it had a box for a closet, and it had all the supplies in that box. And the tuberculosis was just a clinic that I had to write histories for, so the patients had to come in. Histories read and written up. And the first TB clinic that we had, the consulting nurse from Macon came over, and she said, "Oh, I'll be over there, Miss Leslie Catherine, I'll never forget her name. I'll be over to help you. You'll see, it'll be all right." So she came back over. And she said, "Well, why can't you just use this building for the clinic?" And she says, "You've got it all set up." She says, "All you have to do is just write them in and write them out. They can do it in one day, and they'll get out of here." So we routed the welfare department and whatever it was over there on the other side. Ruthie Stafford was, I think, the welfare department. I don't know what Virginia Davis was, but she was there. And she's alive, but Ruthie has been dead for a long time. She left out of the rock. And the State Highway also had a room at the back. Okay? There was a State Highway building. And they just allowed us to use that front room for the health department. So with all the rooms cleared out and plenty of room to let patients in and let patients out, then Miss Catherine came back and she said, "Well, I won't be here, but you can do it." So we did the first clinic out there. I forget where we did the next ones, but we had huge numbers of people with TB and syphilis in those days. And as I said, treatment for syphilis had to be done somewhere else. It couldn't be done in that little office. So the courthouse allowed us to use their jury room at the back. at the back of the courthouse, at the back of the courtroom. And there was a table there, and I set it up with a sterilizer and everything, and put the syringes out for Dr. McKenzie, and he gave the shots, and then he went off in the bathroom, and he took the patients in there, and he gave them their hip shots in there. 60 shots of neoaspirin and 60 shots of bismuth. And that was the treatment in the state. So that's where we went with that program. And then, of course, there were 40 schools to be supervised, country schools. Gordon Holson used to be able to name all of them.
I think I've heard one of his tapes.
And he was excellent. He had one of those photographic memories. Even I, working with him, couldn't remember them all like he did that. I'll never forget it. And we had 2 grammar schools in town. We had Grammar and the West Village, and the one that's now called North Thomaston. I think that was North Side. We had elementary school in West Village, and no kindergarten. But they got it. Martha Mills hired a kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Adair.
Wonderful.
And she ran the kindergarten, no lunchroom, and the children could, no buses, the children could walk from where we lived on 9th Avenue or 116 S Street when we moved there. And they never had a bus. And they went to school to those teachers out there because I went to Mark Smith when Martha was going to school, and I said, which shall I do? Some of the mothers are sending their children to town. He said, Mrs. Colquitt, I would advise that they're prohibiting married women from being teachers. But he says, everyone in Martha Mills Village has been married or could have been married, and you'll be better satisfied there. So that's why we settled on the Silvertown School. And they enjoyed it all. It was wonderful. They had a wonderful teacher, Mrs. Adair, in kindergarten. And later in Mrs. Price, there was a Mrs. Walter Price that took that over. She had 3rd grade for a while, and she had kindergarten for a while. She had 5 of my children out of second in some grade level. And Martha Metcalf was the principal of the elementary school, and Bess Underwood was principal over at the North Side School. And they went there for 8 years and got an excellent education. Then they came to Thomaston and went to Lehigh. And they got 4 more years of very good education. And they were very grateful for it because when they went away to college, they were educated. And Mark Smith left here and went to Macon. I saw a picture of him in the paper the other day.
Oh, really?
In some group, 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago. And he was the superintendent, and he was a good superintendent. I don't know any more about him, and the health department business was going on all this time.
And so would you go to the schools and give shots?
Once a year I went to each school, and most every time we went to the school, Dr. McKenzie went along. Now you may want to edit this out. He had 1 syringe in this pocket, 1 bottle of alcohol in this pocket, 1 or 2 cotton balls in this pocket. And the children line up. Each school was the same. He did the shooting. He wouldn't let me do any shooting. He'd take hold of that child. If they made a fuss, he wouldn't shoot him. He'd say to the teacher, take that one out. If they cried and cut up, he wouldn't shoot. He'd give what he measured it by eye as to how much he'd give for the weight of the child. Shoot that in there. He never had an infection. And all the sterility and all the things that I tried to promote. And the health department said I had to do this, I had to do that. And I did my best, but I couldn't control Dr. McKenzie. And we rode around in that little red coupe of his. It was a red coupe. And we'd go from school to school and do the immunizations 1 month, and then the next month I'd do something else, whatever I had to do. And we were giving yeast for pellagra at that time. And that was administered up there in the office up on Andrews Drive. And I'd have these mothers that would come in from poverty-stricken families and with husbands that were not providing. And the state health department provided the yeast, and we give them a little bag of yeast and a little counseling and a little talk, and give them a pep talk and send them on. You remember the girl that won the spelling match, national spelling match from Sunnyside School?
I think so.
What was her name? Anyway, her mother was one of my patients. She had a house full of children. But that child was raised with one room school and a good teacher. And she got to be the national spelling bee.
That is an accomplishment.
And I felt that the little schools really did a big job.
No, I think so.
And I was proud after I saw the way they came about. And I asked some more questions because I've run out of steam and I've had some water.
Apparently there were a lot of tuberculosis cases. How did they treat them?
A lot of what?
Tuberculosis cases.
Oh, yes.
How
Oh, the reason for the size of the clinic was not the patient, but the contacts and the suspects. And all of them had to have tuberculin testing to see if they were suspects. And if they were contacts, they had to be x-rayed one time anyway. And then if they were suspects, we had to keep them on the list and keep x-raying. And they all went to Alto at that time, and later to Betty State Hospital in Rome, Georgia, which I understand is not, I don't know, it's not in use for TB anymore.
What could they do for those patients?
Bed rest was the first thing, just like it was up north. Up north, we used to send them to the Adirondacks, and they put them in these big sanitariums up there at Saratoga and other places up there. And open air, fresh air, all around. Winter and summer, they were all in the fresh air. And when the sunshine shone, they got the sunshine. They got that, bed rest, and plenty of good food to eat while they were there. And they could only stay a certain length of time, and then when they were considered safe to go home to their families, they went back home. But of course, a lot of those did not survive. Then when they got here, where I was coming into the picture here, they were beginning the chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, you pronounce it.
Chemotherapy, that's what I've heard.
And they had two drugs. One was a sulfa something. I know one of them, a patient in Lincoln Park, begged me to let her continue on it because it made her feel so much better. And they had a limit for it because they could only give it just so long. And I used to follow them up in their homes and see them in Lincoln Park. And the school in Lincoln Park was deplorable to begin with. No, we're not going to emphasize that too much because we don't want to talk about the past too much. But things were bad in Lincoln Park. They didn't have the nice big red brick school building that's being destroyed or torn down. They had a little one-room school with a very, very good teacher, and she cooked a pot of soup and fed the children. But we gave them a shot and we supervised their TB parents, and we didn't isolate anyone. We just treated them. And so Dr. McKenzie was really wonderful, but he would not, even after I left, he would not allow the nurses to give a shot.
Is that right?
We got through Miss May Weaver, our local lady whose house was torn down, where Ellington service station is.
Oh, yes.
That should have been.
The old Drake home.
That should have been. Sure.
It should have been.
But through her, I did a great deal of my work through her. When Sheriff Meeks couldn't go with me, she bridled me down the Waymanville area. Told me, the postman and everybody told me, don't go down there without a revolver or a stick or something with you. everywhere I went, I was always safe. I had my public health nurse uniform on. She went with me one day and she called the fellow over. We were stuck in the mud. You don't remember the washboard roads, but she did, and she ride down there with me, and we got stuck in the mud. And it happened to be on her property, so she called over a nice colored gentleman, and she said, Jack, go to the house, we're going to be here for lunch. She said, you go to the house and see if you can't find something we can have so that we can live till we get back to town. I went to the house and came back with the nicest big fat sweet potatoes, baked, and they were so good. And he had a Pepsi Cola or something like that in the house. He brought us that, and we had our lunch down there in the woods. And we got out after a while. Somebody came along and pulled us out and got us on the way to go home.
Well, would you receive a call to go to a certain location, or would you just periodically?
We had those on our records, and they were required to have just so many calls, and we were required to be sure and take care of the contacts because we were afraid we'd develop more if we had exposure to the patient. And that's why they sent them to Alto, and they treated them just about the same up there that we had in New York. Bed rest and these open sanitaria with porches and lots of warm blankets, and elevated beds and so forth. And they were well cared for. And they got bed rest and plenty of food, something to eat. They didn't get vitamins in those days. They didn't know about vitamins yet. So I don't know what they're doing now. I really don't know. I tried to stay away from it because I had 2 lengthy stays in the health department. And that was the first one. And after that, then, a year after my 3rd child was born, she was born in 42, and in 43 I went back again. Let's see, that was 5 years. I stayed in, 43 was when I quit. I stayed 5 years the first time and quit because Mary was so sick with allergy. And I was sick with staying up night and day with her as a baby and crying all night. So I went and told her I had to retire. And I told my husband then, I said, I never have to go back to public health again because it took me away from the family and took me away from that place I wanted to be. And it definitely affected my child. And I had a little colored girl, a little rocker and swinger while I was gone. That was all we could do for allergy. Oh, medicine has really come a long way.
Well, I guess you've seen a lot of change from the way it was then to...
And then with the schools, I'm trying to think. We had one up at Crest, and Mary Daniel had to help me with that. Mary and Pat Daniel had to help me there. Mary was the teacher. She's recently died. And Pat Daniel died some time ago out at Providence. She had diabetes and nobody to give her the shot, so she just gave up. But they were my biggest helpers to introduce me there, because at Crest they were very suspicious. That was over the top. And that was in the valley, Pleasant Valley, where they had no way to make an income except to distill alcohol. And so, and they didn't trust strangers. So when I went in there, they introduced me and they were kind. We saw many, many sights.
I bet you did.
And they're not there anymore, so. And some of the girls that followed in nursing and got scholarship money from the auxiliary did it because as little girls, they saw me come and treat Grandma Hammock, and there were 3 little girls, and Walter Hammock was their father. And the mother was dead. They said somebody put poison in the well. So we went and saw them for hookworm. That was so prevalent. And we had to have that examined and treated. And the State Health Department, therefore, came again. We've had a wonderful State Health Department here in Georgia for many years. I don't know how many years before I came into it. We'd have to go to the capital. find out ahead.
Right.
And hookworm was very prevalent in the country areas. And Grandma lived a long time. We got her treated, and we got all the children treated. And 2 of the girls turned out to be nurses because they thought that was
You inspired them.
Well, that's what they said. One of them worked down here at the hospital a long time. The other one works, she's either alive and working somewhere else, so I don't even remember their names. But the one that worked out here, you could probably get a history from the hospital. Because she was in the, what do they call it when it's breathing?
Emphysema.
Where she had to make tests in the hospital. I don't know, you have to ask Carolyn Knight. Carolyn Knight would know.
Okay.
She followed Mrs. Hammond, who was the first directress of nurses that I knew then. She's the one I worked under at the hospital. And then Carolyn Knight came behind her, and she married Carolyn. She married somebody else now, and her name is Carolyn something, but she's head of the hospital auxiliary.
Oh.
What is her name? She married another gentleman.
I thought her name was Knight.
Her maiden name was Knight, I think, and she married this man that lives over on Johnston Heights. And she's,
I thought his name was Knight. Carolyn.
Hasn't he got a place down the highway somewhere where he raises cheetahs?
I think.
And he and she had known one another. And he was a widower and she was single.
Yes.
She married him. So she changed her name. But she was Carolyn Knight when I knew her.
Because I know her as Carolyn Knight.
You do?
I think.
I could be very mistaken after all this time. Because when I went to the hospital, I was trying to get back into public health and there was nothing open. And that's why I did 5 years in the hospital. And then went back to public health when there was an opening. And so from there, I think, meanwhile, Merle Mallory had been to, we had classes, and the Red Cross had classes out at the Martha Mill because they paid for them. They put $50 in the safe. I told them I had to have $50 for the course. And Merle Mallory was one of the first students to be in that. And Merle Mallory had a wonderful history because after that, she went in the Navy, so everybody in her family depended on her because I think she was the youngest perhaps, or the eldest one, I don't know. They lived down on 4th Avenue. And the brother had died. So Merle felt responsible for her mother. And she went off and she went to Georgia Baptist, I guess it was, in Atlanta. And she'd had the course in Red Cross. Like I'd had several courses in Red Cross when I was coming up in New York. And the Red Cross was very sufficient then. And I gave a course called Home Nursing and Care of the Sick. And she took that course with me and passed with flying colors. And so when she wanted to marry and didn't know whether to marry or whether to go on with nursing, I said, why don't you go on and get an education? Let Al make his living at Studebaker and you get your living when you can and get qualified to nurse because you're going to make a wonderful public health nurse someday. So she went off and went to Georgia Baptist and got that. She went in the Navy and got scholarship money and so forth so she could go on. And when she came back, she was coming past my house one day and I saw her going down the steps. I said, Merle, there's going to be a job open at the health department again. And I said, how about it? You going to be ready to take this one? And she said, well, I hadn't thought about it. I'm working for Dr. McCurdy down where he had his little clinic.
I don't know where that was.
On the way to Wilmington.
Oh, okay.
In Brookwood, I think they call it now, a big white house. He had a clinic there before it turned into a park. And then he moved to Silvertown and he had an office upstairs. And he had Dr. Kellen, who was in service, and he was going out somewhere and he got in an accident and was killed. Dr. McCurdy. And that was a great loss, because he was a good doctor. But he didn't have anything to do with public health. He was just in Merle's path as she came. She worked for him. She'd been in the Navy, and she'd come home, and she was agreeable to go into public health. So I said, I'm going to leave there because I cannot stay. My child's too sick, and I'm about to break down. And so I went home to be with Mary, and Mary was born in 42, and she was a year old when I quit. So Merle probably started somewhere around 42, 43, I don't know.
How many were in public health when you were there? Just yourself? And then when Merle replaced you, did they add more then, or?
Oh, and in the meantime, they had gotten me an administrator, Dr. Barron, got me a clerk, Jill Reeves. She was my secretary. Up until that time, I had a little PYA, public use something, one of Rosevelle's programs.
Assistant.
For $10 a week or something like that she'd work. And Margaret Henry, she was at that time, one of the Middlebrooks, Ken. She was coming to the Franklin Beach training, Martha Nimitz. What's her name in AARP? They used to give the devotionals. She could tell you something about Margaret. I can't tell you anymore. She went away from here and married her. But she was with us in our church, and she and I were good friends, and she was the secretary. And Jewel came, and she used to come to the house. I was sick in bed. Louise Scheller was taking my place. She was a proud junior nurse. She was doing what she could. She'd come and ask what to do, and I'd try to tell her. And Dr. Barron saw that at least we needed someone to keep records. So he hired Jill Reeves because she'd recently been bereaved, and he knew that she had great ability. And she went on from being the clerk for me until she got to be the administrator. So she was administrator when I went back the second time. Because Merle worked, and she and Alan had many problems and so forth, and he died. And then when she was ready to go back, I went home again. And so I had 2 sessions in public health for that's fine. I don't know.
Well, have you kept up with, I mean, over the years, I'm sure you watched it with interest as to how they
Oh, yes, when I got back the second time, we had 3 nurses.
Oh, so it
I
had
took Merle's place, and Betty Shepherd, and Jeanette Woodall. Dr. Pruitt Woodall's first name. She's living. And we had some wonderful experiences there. The county commissioners and the state health board, they said when Jewel was past thinking of anything else, her daughter took care of her out in the country in her own home. She said, I will never let my mama go to a nursing home. And I'll always take care of my mama. And she did. And she's still living. And she comes by here sometimes. She lives with her daughter now, down on Green Street. So, it's come in so many ways. And by the time I got back the second time, Merle had to go home to be with her children because of Alan's death. She'd been through a long, hard road with him with heart problems. And so she left and I took over, and so it was one of those things. And I went back in and did some more work. That time we had immunization clinics come to us, because meanwhile Dr. McKenzie had died. And Dr. Sappington was the head clinician and the only clinician. And he came over from his office, and he did all the prenatal and postpartum, and the infant and welfare work was done in small clinics that we had then. And he did all the doctor work for that. And we nurses were not educated like they are now. They weren't even permitted to do some of the things they're permitted to do now. And but in that little office that's still existing, and over there where it is now, that's Gordon. on the way down from the hospital is West Gordon. And we did a tremendous amount of work. We still had huge clinics in that building because we were doing the contacts and the suspects. I understand there's some question about that now. And in the meantime, it was 20 years, 10 years or something. And Merle says, well, you know, we're treating them differently than we did then. And they're giving these drugs. And so then we started giving drugs, and some patients react. They'd go off for a while and stay at Batty and come back on drugs, on chemotherapy. And we'd give them that, and we're still following suspects in contact. So there were huge clinics down in West Gordon. And the consultant nurse would come over from Macon and try to help with them, but it was left with Jewel and the nurses to do the writing up of the histories. And they did it. And I don't think anything about it.
Well, did you ever see any polio cases?
Oh, yes. They started treating polio when I went back that second time. That was when they were initiating Dr. Salt's polio vaccine. And we would give that as a preventive. And the cases that we had were sent to Warm Springs.
I wondered if...
That's where they were treated because President Roosevelt had started there. And I've always wanted to go over there and see that rehab department now, but I've never had the opportunity. Because
I'd like to see
we used to go swimming there before there was ever a clinic. As a family, we'd take our friends from the north and go over there and go swimming, and it was 50 cents now for entrance. And the springs were so warm and so nice. And I know the springs are still there. And there are a lot of warm, nice springs in Georgia. We used to spend our summers up in the country those years when I was home with Mary and the little children. I spent 13 years at home, just with the children and Carlton in the grocery store. He gave up his truck and started. He was just at the age where he was a little too old to get in the service, so he took his out by being in the National Guard and having blackouts and things like that. And by cooperating by selling the truck, selling the car, and delivering with a blind-eyed mule, one blind eye, and a wagon. That was where Leon Quinn told me the other day. He says, I remember that, Mrs. Cole. He says, we used to be on foot in those days. We didn't have an excuse to go anywhere with a truck. We had to deliver, and we had to give credit, and we had to do a lot of things because mill folks couldn't seem to pay for all those televisions and new cars, and then still have a doctor and a grocery store. So either the doctor or the grocery store went waiting. And that was the way they operated. And we could see the coming of the larger supermarkets. So after 19 years in the grocery store and taking care of me and 6 children, giving us plenty to eat out of the grocery store. He figured that was a good living anyway. And he couldn't get a job. So after that they were willing to hire him out at Thurston, and Mr. Holtzman immediately put him in charge of the baseball and the recreational activities, so that he got a little extra for that. And I remember thanking Mr. Holtzman for that. But he and Mr. Tate were in the same building. And they were of the same mind.
Well, that was a wonderful school, I know.
And between Mr. Tate and Mr. Holston and Mr. Colquitt went to Atwater to work for Mr. Foy. Rachel Foy is still there. And she was first grade teacher right there, and he was principal. And our Thomaston minister at that time was Tom Dews, and his wife went to work. She was the first Presbyterian minister to ever do anything like that. So she went out there and she worked in the library, and he told us one day when we were on a trip to Atlanta with the young people, he said, Virginia went back to teaching because with the state of my health being precarious, he'd been malarial and so forth from down around Albany. And he said, we figured that she ought to have some means of income for our 3 children. And then she went back to work and got degrees enough so she could teach and she could be a librarian.
Right.
She could work for Mr. Foy at Atwater, and so that's what she did. Then they left here and they went somewhere else. But the Presbyterian Church and the Three Mills are all keen in my mind because those are the places I've been associated with. We joined the Presbyterian Church when Carlton Jr. was 8 years old.
So I guess you attended the beautiful Presbyterian church that was downtown.
The little one.
The little one.
Tore down.
Yeah, when I moved to Thomaston, it was no longer here.
They should have moved it to the
I
country.
know, it really looked
Or
beautiful.
moved it someplace closer to us here in town. Because now the Presbyterian Church took 10 acres that Mr. King either donated or gave at such a low rate that we broke ground, and you can get that history from the Presbyterian Church. And they had pictures of the groundbreaking and the starting and the church. Sue Birdshaw can tell you how we built that church and how everything we did. So we bought this house, and with both of us working, Colquitt said, let's take one payment off the end and one payment off the top. He knew how to do it so that it was paid for in 5 years instead of 10. It didn't cost but $10,500. And we moved here when John was 18. So that was several children's life.
Well, when did he get involved into the scouting?
Well, he wouldn't go in scouting while he was raising his own family, but he did. I remember hearing Luke on the memorial service for my husband. Luke Ellington gave the first eulogy, and Ben Miller gave the second. And Luke said the first contact he had in scouting, Colquitt, loaned his old white truck, the old thing we call the dog wagon. We'd take the body off. It was homemade, and we bought it for cash from Durwood Kaufman. And we went on many, many trips while we could, but not too far as long as we were raising children. And he'd lend them. He was delivering groceries with it when he needed to. And he'd lend it to first the Silvertown group or the Baptist Church group or the Methodist group or whatever group of Boy Scouts needed that to be transported places. He'd lend his truck. That was his first contact with the scouting. And then he'd have to hear from the memorial service. I have that tape.
Good.
I'd have to hear the rest of that from me. It
sounds
has nothing to do with public health, except that I was in and out of public health 2 different times. And Merle was in and out of it 2 different times. And I didn't want to do anything that's going to hurt Merle because she's living. Oh, and at the first notice I had of any kind of nurse was him, Mary Adams was the first one that I know as an RN. And she's still out of Riverside. But she couldn't tell you anything. And
was she a native Upsonian?
Oh no, she and Dr. Adams were here, and they were delivering babies together. And he has his picture up in the hospital on the 3rd floor, or wherever they used to have the OB. And he was one of the first, and then Dr. Carter. And then just as the war broke out, Dr. Sappington. And he took me in the office and said, he was very stern, and he was very military. And he said, just get started in a doctoring profession after all these years. And he said, now I have to leave it. And his wife and he had met in New Jersey at the Muhlenberg Hospital, I think. And they fell in love. And she came down here with him. She'd been originally from Maine. And he told later, or she told me once, whether she saw that ship go out through the harbor. That was when she had her first spell of asthma.
It must have been.
So allergies and things were connected somewhere. We don't know how. And they're still connected somewhere. Happiness and unhappiness. I have said this. I think if there were more happiness and love in this world, with less fear. Now, she was afraid he'd never get back from the war. And if we had less fear, we'd have a better world.
That's true.
So I think Al's going to preach a sermon on that someday. I said, Al, I wish you'd preach a sermon on that. Because I dreamed that up when I was up night and day with Mary at home, patting her little back, and you could just feel it quiver. You could hear you could feel the electricity in that child's body. And she couldn't sleep unless she knew I was close by. So I lay down on the floor and I put my hand up through the crib and patted Mary's back so she could sleep. She was the third, and she was really in education. But she survived. She's 142. She is 52 this year, the 1st of June. And Carlton Jr. is off. He's the free spirit. He's the one that got to go everywhere, and he's traveling all over everywhere. I can't tell you where he is right now. But he lived in Santa Fe a long time, and he was married in Santa Fe 1 year in October, and his wife died in February.
Oh, that's sad.
She was a year younger, a week younger than I was. And he'd come home, no, I'm not going to marry Alice. Okay. But he did. She called me and she said, Carlton, I finally decided. He needs me and I need him. She said, we're going to get married. I said, well, good. I said, I've been waiting to hear that for a long time. But she was far advanced in cancer. He's been nursing it through serious illness. And
did you see many cancer patients then, or I guess the diagnosis was not as great then as it is now?
We didn't do any of this that you're doing now, as well as I can remember. The biggest thing was immunizations for typhoid first. We had big clinics, and Mary Carlisle Dallas could tell you something about that, because Ed Dallas came back from the Navy. They had to wait until he could come back from the Navy. And in the meantime, her mother inherited it, got some money from an oil well out in Texas, and she gave it to Mary Carlisle. And that was Mrs. Felder in my Sunday school class. Mary Carlisle went to Methodist Church, but Mrs. Felder was in my Sunday school class, Presbyterian Church. Bought that house up there in the corner. You know what that is, which was and she's up in Atlanta in Methodist, Wesley Woods, I think. And she left the day before I moved in, where I had my suite. So I say, I have the millionaire suite now. And it's all come out in the wash, as it were, you know, and having the contacts I've had with Merle, I don't want to do any of this. Not hurt Merle, because she's living. She's done a lot of good in the community.
For sure.
Since she finished her nursing career. But Mrs. Adams, she's still living too, all of them. And myself were the only three RNs that I know of that could have been on this. And Dr. Woodall's second wife came along, and she was an RN. She was with me when my youngest son was born in that hospital. They opened, I'll never forget when they had the dedication of the hospital before it was completely built. We went, and our son John, our fourth child, was on his daddy's shoulders. And we got home and we said, John, what did you think of that? Big crowd up there at that hospital. That nice hospital that we're taking contributions for, and everybody's been so good to contribute and cooperate. And we're still doing it. I think it's wonderful.
Right.
And this is a unique community. And I think a lot of small towns are more together.
Inclined to do that.
And so I like small communities. I know Carlton told Bill Boyd that was the reason we came to Thomaston, because we wanted to raise a family, and we wanted to raise them in a small town. We didn't want to raise them in New York or in any of its environs. So they was fine. We were up there right close to Sagamore Hill, but we weren't near his home and the things he felt were more important. So we came here, and I've never regretted it, because by the time I got through in Brooklyn and New York and the complications of things we went through there, I didn't have anything to call me back there, except I think I had 2 cousins living now in Long Island.
Mhm.
And now my daughter's there. The one who was born in the Brooklyn Hospital is back there. Living in Glen Head, Long Island, which is right close to us today. And almost little community towns. We did visiting nursing and all of those. And she's back there now, and she's working in a place in Mineola, a big regional center.
Wonderful.
And when I was there at Christmas, they took me to the original Mother's Health Clinic. And they didn't have a tape or anything that day. They regretted it, but they said they were so glad to know the first nurse that was hired. And that was the job I quit to come down here. I worked from June till September and came down here. And no wonder the lady was upset and didn't know whether she paid me enough. That was Mrs. F. Hunting of Babcock, and Mrs. F. Howard Smith, and some of the wealthy ladies in that community had founded the Oyster Bay Visiting Nurses Association. And now they're all gone, but the Visiting Nurses Association is still there. And we had rooms upstairs where we could live, so I lived up there while he went to South America. Because when he saw that the Depression wasn't going to be over in a hurry, he said, maybe it'll be over in a year. Roosevelt's doing a good job. I'll just make this trip now. And I was advised by an elder member of my family that it would be a good idea. Let him get the itch out of his feet, because he'd been all over the world and everywhere, different times in summer, making money enough to go back to school. And just let him get the itch out of his feet now. So I let him go. And he was gone from Labor Day one year until Labor Day the next year. Hiking and thumbing and riding airplanes. And I said, how'd you get those airplane tickets for that price? Oh, he says, at the borders when you made exchange, he said, there were ways of knowing how to do it then. You couldn't do it now. I don't think you could make that trip anyway.
I don't think so.
He saw all the country. Now, he finally got me as far as Panama Canals, Panama City. But he never did get me across over into Ecuador. The other, he went down the west coast and across and back up the east coast. And then something happened. We were supposed to be married in Florida or Georgia. And I was in Florida waiting, and he called and said something that held him up in the lower regions in South America. He couldn't make it. So I said, well, my vacation's up. I've got to go back. So I went back to Oyster Bay and worked. And he got back. So Labor Day one year, got back Labor Day the next year.
Well, that must have been a wonderful
And that's
trip.
another whole experience, believe me. So I tell my children, and these children that were married here the other day, and they were having so much trouble getting off from work and having to go back to a job. I said, honey, I had the same thing. But mine was in New York. And we were married on Friday afternoon, and then equinoctial storm, September the 15th. It rained, so we couldn't go to town in the rumble seat that we planned to go in with our witnesses driving. And we took the Long Island Railroad train, got into the Penn Station or wherever it was, and got out and went to a little Chinese restaurant downtown and had a meal. They left us. We went back up to the New Yorker hotel and stayed Friday night and Saturday night, and or Saturday night. We had to stay Friday night and Saturday night, and Sunday we had to go home because he was supposed to go to work Monday. We got to work, no job. It was exciting times in the 20s and the 30s and around those times. And you can talk to older folks than us, and they can tell you history back before 1907 when I was born. And there have been good times and bad times in this country. We're still here. Bill Clinton's got it. And I am sorry for him. I told the children, I said, Mama, what do you want me to do when I'm grown? And it's like, I would like for you to grow up to be a good, substantial Christian citizen of the United States of America and do the best you can.
That's right.
And choose your own profession and use your own minds. And they did. I haven't any complaint. Some of them have taken longer than others to get where they
That's all.
But
Right.
now I can see the light. So we were married in 1933. September 15th, 1933. Martha was born July 28th, 1934. And his birthday was the 29th. A lot of our family have been born 28th, 29th, and 27th. A lot of the Colquitts. And a lot of the Williamses were born in January.
Isn't that interesting how it can fall on us?
And we kid a lot when we had family reunions, you know, the Capricorn is the goat, and Leo's the lion. It wasn't all roses and candy every day.
Right.
But we had a good life. We stayed with our children. We did things with our children. We took them to the woods on hikes on Sunday and took them to the rivers and creeks and things where they could go in the woods and not be in the public pools on Sunday afternoon. That was very potent. As long as I went to Sunday school and church in the morning, got back in time for fellowship and church at night. They all said, Mama, we had too much church. We got to make some changes with our children. And they're doing all right.
Well, that's good.
It's been a good life, and the public health part of it was very interesting. But the happiest moments I had were the 13 years I was at home with my own children, and the 5 years I was on the 3rd floor in charge of the babies and the mothers, and then the accidents and the heart attacks and things that had to be put on that 3rd floor, because they didn't even have the 4th floor open for anything except surgery. And that was where Mary Adams and Geneva Pryor and some of the others were. Barbara Cork was the afternoon shift. Ruth Smith, who's now Ruth Hardy, was the night supervisor. Somebody else, Mrs. Hammond, was the day supervisor and had to cover emergency and all over the house, and also help in delivery if she was needed. She wouldn't even get to the kitchen to get a cup of coffee before she got a phone call to go somewhere. And last time I saw Geneva, she said she saw her. She still lives in Florida. I don't know how that woman would survive. But she did. Some of us are just tougher than others, I guess.
I was wondering how public health was funded back then. Who paid for public health in the 30s?
Well, in New York, I know how they did it. They had insurance. John Hancock at Metropolitan paid for 10. I paid a certain amount when I was in visiting nursing. Now down here, how was it paid for? I think most of it was free.
It probably, with
Had to be.
public taxes, I'm sure.
And there was no charge made for any service that was given in the health department. It was all free. You'd have to get that out of the capital. I can't tell you that.
Were you paid by the state or by the county?
No, I was paid by the county.
Oh, okay.
Came here at $150 a month. That included my transportation allowance.
So maybe it was local and state, or possibly just local maybe.
I took a certain amount of leave to have my baby. I wanted to have 6 months instead of that I had 6 weeks, because I had to hire somebody right away, and she was going in the Army, and she knew she could do better there, so she didn't stay long. I don't even remember her name, but she didn't stay long. And so the nurse from Macon came back and she said, "It's your job." So I went back when Mary was too young. And how we both survived is quite a story. But Carlton had the grocery store, and he fed the family. And I stayed 13 years at home. And those good teachers out in Silvertown and here in Lee did their job for 12 years. And
they're wonderful.
Each one of them had to earn their own money to go to school, because they gave the oldest one the first stipend to go to Emory, and she got to be a nurse. And then by the time it came time for her little sister to go to be a nurse, expenses had gone up so much, and she was having expenses, so she applied to the hospital at City and got it. Mary did. And she came back and talked to the hospital at City and told them thank you. All the different things she'd done. And she went right ahead. And St. Joseph's Infirmary is where she nursed. got her trained, and they moved. And she married when she went to college. Her husband said he took her away from St. Joseph's because if he hadn't, she'd been running the infirmary. But she and another girl did a lot of work in the infirmary as they were moving, you know. And they set up the first intensive care unit at St. Joseph's Hospital. Wow. And then they wanted her at Emory, and they also wanted the sister for something. And Martha said, I can't be there and work in my own school and be Mary Colquitt's sister. So I don't know what they did about that, I forgot. That was just a minor detail. They always worked things out. We never killed each other, of course. Brothers and sisters, you know. Big families. 6 children. And when I told them that at the Mother's Health Center in Minneapolis last winter, they said, you left where it was Glen Cove, Minneapolis, set up the first, we had a Jewish doctor, one doctor, and I set up the record for that Parenthood, which is now the Planned Parenthood. And they got a great big place, huge place. And I was introduced to the doctor that was in charge of, they even have an abortion clinic there.
Now, where is this?
Long Island.
Oh, okay.
That's just another episode. That was before I came down here. That was the job I left.
Right.
To come in because that lady had to fight to get me that job, and all the other ladies on the board wanted someone else. And I said, Ms. Babcock, I won't leave you without 30 days notice, and I'll set up these records, and I'll do this before I go. And I did. And now they've got the results there in Minneapolis. So, I don't, and then they had lost all their records too. Nothing but, and she didn't have tapes the day I was there. Well, it's all right. It doesn't have to be on record. Anything I did. The only thing I feel is worthwhile was to raise 6 good, healthy American citizens that don't all go to church, but at least they have Christian principles. Young folks have to get away from some things, and then when they get to be older,
that's right.
They come back.
They come back.
So everything worked. As I told Mary when she was here the last time, I said, you know, Mary, you've lived with me, your mother for a long time. And I said, you've seen things come about that make you say, it all comes out in the wash. And my mother's only quotation to me was this. She knew she could not survive it. It wasn't cancer that killed her. In 1914, she had a diagnosis of cancer, and she was in a hospital, German hospital, Wyckoff Heights Hospital downtown Brooklyn, had cancer and had everything removed. And following that, then she had epilepsy, and Dr. McKenzie told me it was probably a hormonal type. Oh yeah, and then postgraduate, they told us, now young ladies, this is the newest science, hormones. And so, I liked studying though, and I went to school everywhere I go. We were both in school when we left up there. He was finishing it, about to finish his degree, his master's degree in education when we came down here and when the crash came. And he was going to school, he was still going to school at CCNY the day Martha Ellis was born.
Oh my goodness.
And I was still going to school and learning school nursing so I could get got a certificate after I went to OSU. So we want to promote education. And the thing I want to see now is a place for the seniors. And I've told you about it. The little elementary school building that Al Simmons knows about it. And if anybody can cooperate on that one little elementary school.
Now which one is that?
Downtown, opposite the Methodist Church. It's going to be Episcopal Charismatic.
Oh, yes, the Drake building. No.
That was called, Drake didn't have a school either in the beginning. Wow. But they had that nice school built over it. This, you know where R.D. High School is? You know where you have your auditorium and when we had the nights to sing? Freddie Davis and I came out of there and I said, now Jay Davis is active in public life. I said, you tell Jay, I said, if he lets, and I've told Al, if they let that elementary school, I said, look there, they even have wheelchair access. I want that for the seniors. because I've been going back to school whenever I could and
Mhm.
getting what I could at Gordon. I went back at 70 to Gordon to get art and music and things that I hadn't ever had a chance to get,
Mhm.
and got very satisfactory summer courses.
Mhm.
The next year when I went back, Carlton was beginning to get uneasy, and I was settling for a course in economics and social studies. And, I felt I've had enough social studies, so I didn't need it, but it was interesting.
Mhm.
And they admitted us to certain things that he and I both were allowed to go to Jackson, where that prison is,
Mhm.
and observe over there and listen. And we were both allowed to go to other things that Mr. Williamson, said, well, sure, let them go.
Mhm.
He wouldn't restrict us just because I was a student. So Carlton and I got some more education that way. And it was all worthwhile. But he would, as Ben Miller said in the end of the memorial service, Colquitt was an educator. I'm into that.
Okay.
I have that up at the home.
Okay.
And I listen to it some nights. It's a faulty power, something or other, in the middle of the service. It's such another town. But it's well worthwhile to listen to about Colquitt. Now, if you want any more about Colquitt, you can
Okay.
get that.
Okay, that sounds real good.
They
Maybe
have
we
it in
could even
Scouting.
make a copy of it.
Sure.
Yeah, you could. Some of the children have, and you would probably know how to edit out that noise. I don't know.
It's hard to get noises out, unfortunately.
Al said he thought it must have been a power shortage because he had his hand on the button and he had pressed it, and it was recording.
It could
And
have
all
been.
of a sudden, right in the middle of it, there's a tremendous amount of noise, and it comes back on. And then you can still hear Luke and his eulogy. You can hear Ben Miller. And Ben Miller really was outstanding.
Wonderful.
And,
Well, Mr. Colquitt was outstanding.
well, I thought sort of thing. He was my husband. Have you ever heard the story? You don't want this on tape now.
Oh, sure.
The story about the little 13-year-old girl? I used to tell it to all my mothers as they were about to deliver. I'd be rubbing the backs, rubbing the backs. Billie Colquitt, she was known for her back rubbing. And I'd be rubbing the backs and calming them down. Shucks, didn't matter, they got some if they needed them, and the doctors were good and were trying to relieve pain. But when they first come in, before we got the doctor's orders, put them over on this side, and I'd go to the back, and I'd say, now, have you ever heard this story about the little girl who was 13 years old, going on the first date, or her first prom, or her first something, and she was just 13, so she wasn't doing very much. It was graduation or something, and she was all dressed up in a vest, bib and tucker, and long dress, and beautiful corsage and everything. And her mother got her dressed, and this little girl had 5 little brothers, and she was the only girl. And so her mother stood back and she looked at her. She said, honey, I think you're beautiful. You're the prettiest thing I've ever seen. Well, she was the only girl she had, and she'd gotten a dress, and she did look beautiful. And she says, I think you're beautiful. But then, of course, she says, I'm prejudiced. And the little girl said, oh, no, Mother, not again. And then always would relax the mother, and we'd have an easier delivery.
Oh, that's cute.
And I don't know where I heard that story. Carlton was full of them. He had a bit in him. But I had a few of my own. My mother had told me a few expressions, and the biggest thing she instilled in me while she was combing my hair and preparing me for her death, because she had high blood pressure, she had dropsy, hot drops. She weighed 180 pounds, and she weighed about 102 when she was married. Small built and difficult deliveries and everything else, but she had 5 children, lost one. And she took me as her special gift because I came 1 year after the little girl had died. And so I was hers. And I was the middle one, but I was the only girl in that group. My oldest brother was 13 years older than I, and he was my father role model. And my younger brothers were my ones that cut and scratched and did all kinds of things. And there's one of them living up now in the VA hospital in Atlanta, and that's all I had of brothers and sisters and father and mother. But we lived through it. We lived through a lot of things in those days, and where my father had come from Canada and was used to having cows and calves and lambs and things. He used to say how he hated to hold the little lamb's neck and then have to split. And he said it just broke his heart to have to kill for eating. But they did that. And then when he got to this country, he was a minority. He was an outcast. Connecticut Yankee mother and a Canadian father. He's always been a minority, hasn't he? Weren't the minorities in the olden Bible story?
Oh, yes. For sure.
And so when I came down here, there were minorities aplenty. The blacks had been a minority for quite a while. But people like the principal at Drake, Monroe,
did you know him?
Oh, yes. He was one of my best allies with the children. And when he got to school, and then they moved into the red brick school, that was quite a big thing. And even Jim Franco, that came as the first Greek to infiltrate something other than black right away, he had difficulty, and he died of high blood pressure. And severe brain disorder. Stress and strain. You young folks, get off on your education, on your vacations, and don't stick at it too long. Retire and get off and have a good time when you're young enough and able enough to do it and still live and come back and write about it. We wrote ours up, in Thomaston-Upson. And so I have those, but I haven't rerun them. That kid had called him when he came back and said, "Oh, he's been off before." And he's just rewriting some of the same things he said before. That was a minute at the coffee table. We've had such good times in Thomaston. I never regretted coming here, never. Thomaston's wonderful to me. It's been so good to me. And now here, look, Judy Pascoe's building that place around the corner, Thomaston Manor, when Carlton was first sick and I was laid up with a broken shoulder, broken wrist, and my arm up like this. And I walked down the hall and I said, "Lord, I don't know who's going to look after me." But 5 minutes later, Margie Daniel called and said, "This lady has come into the cast store and said, 'Do you know anybody that needs a part-time worker? I'm going on Social Security pretty soon, and it won't be enough. And if you could just get me some little job somewhere.'" And so Lizzie's been with me ever since. Through the death of her husband and the death of my husband. She's 21 years younger than I. I said God made her when she was born, and she was my Lizzie. And she's satisfied to be there. She's everything. The children can't be with me, and they just rely on her for everything. So she's with me every morning from 9:30 till 1.
Wonderful.
And that relieves the staff out there, because they are short-handed this week.
Are they?
One on vacation and one off sick. That puts it down to 2 in the daytime and that time. So I said, "Lizzie, we'll do all we can. We'll take our business and carry it down to 308 Howard Street and do it in the sink. We won't leave it for their washing machine or anything else." And so we worked with it.
Well, it's so nice you're so close.
And that's what someone at the wedding said the other night, Leon Quinn. He says, "Mrs. Colquitt, you got what you deserve." He says, "You got the best of both worlds. You got your own home right here, and you come to it anytime you want."
That's true.
And not have to do anything except let the yard man run the outside. Lizzie sweeps up a little bit if she sees it, needs it, if somebody's coming. But it's an easy house to keep clean. And that was insurance that gave us that. We got a whole new house, Mr. Steele. We had a tremendous fire here that everybody credited to our setting the house on fire, which was not true. It started in the den on a rug, and the scar is still on the floor. But because of the insurance, they had just written us and said, premiums had to go up because of something, and we just increased it. We covered everything. We had all new walls, all these. See, the ceilings were even higher. They were 12 feet. I said, let's bring them down to 10 feet.
Gosh.
Everything from the roof down was done, except they didn't finish up in the kitchen. And then I took that on myself to do, and we did that later. I wanted it all to look the same. And when they got back to the kitchen, they thought, well, they were out of money. They'd spent too much on some of the other things. With all that they had, they overspent. But Alan Ellaby and my son Tom Colquitt did the job. So, but I have to be thankful for here. And Tom has done a lot of construction. And Alan did a lot. He did that side porch that we came in. Made it so that Carlton, who was in failing health then, could get up and down and in and out of the house more easily than he could come all the way around to the front. There was no entrance around there. There was no Florida room there. When Ray Kennedy lived in this house, when we first lived here, we lived in this room, and that was the butler's pantry, and we ate in there. And then the next people who moved in closed that off and made a closet there. But we shared the kitchen, her refrigerator, and the bathroom with her and her 4 children and her husband, who was the mail carrier.
Oh.
And that was just before Carlton's arrival. Martha was a baby. She fell off the back steps out there. Come out memories from way back. And Mrs. Scroggins was the one who built this house. She and her husband, he was a barber.
What year would that have been, do you know?
You'd have to get that from some of the Hoyt Scroggins or somebody. I think it's one member of that family living. Ethel Scroggins, she was married to someone else, but took the name of Scroggins again. And Anne English was a Scroggins, those two. And Hoyt, and she had 6 children. And she built the house originally. I never felt anything but love in this house. That's what one of my members of my circle said. It was built with love, children, and my children were so happy. My son, who always wanted to be the minister, hadn't made it yet, wrote the other day and said, I'm so glad you had the wedding. How did it go? He says, as long as that house and home are kept for things like that, I'm sure it'll be blessed. Well, that's the way it was built that way, and that's the way we wanted to continue. So I'm going to, we had prayer meetings here in the living room last year, and some of them they didn't have them at the church. I'm going to propose to Al that someday we'd have more things like that down here where they don't have the facilities at the Presbyterian Church, because it would make Carlton very happy.
Well, do you play the piano?
Oh, I had played the piano before I ever came to Thomaston. From 13 till 16, I had rheumatic fever and had 6 months out of school. But from 13 till 17, I had lessons when I could get them for $1. Because my brother's voice teacher gave them to him for $1. And I'd go and take a lesson from Val Peavy, and he'd say, practice, 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 practice. So I practiced until I got to where Mary Jean was when she played her concert over at Gordon. And the minute she played Wedding Day and Troll Dog, and I caught it. I said, that's the one she didn't practice. It takes hours. I used to come home from school and walk home with a girl who was French nationality, and we taught French all the way home. It took 4 years of French in those days, and 4 years of music. I wasn't interested in other things. I got all the music and all the art and things that I could get in Rick and Hill High School. And we taught French all the way home. We'd walk. And then she'd go her way and I'd go mine. And I'd go home and I'd get to the piano and start practicing as soon as I could. I had to cook for 3 brothers and go downstairs and fix that and go upstairs and burn the soup. And still be practicing. And then come and eat burned soup. And I practiced, and I practiced an average of 5. I practiced till 10 o'clock at night when you had to cut it off in the city. I practiced anywhere as soon as I could get off at 3 and stop. Certainly after 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I practiced from then until 10 every day,
Mm.
7 days a week. And practice is what it takes. Mary Jean can tell you that. And when she was talking at the, I love that concert. You have a lot to do with too. I have more concerts and things that the elderly can get to, either in the early afternoon or in the morning. I've been to some over at Lee High School when I lived here that I could go to in the morning. I could get off in the morning. Now I'm able. So many of those people. I'm the only one, I guess, that has all of her faculties and no complaints. I can see 20/20, 20/30. This was injured by laser. There was years on a hemorrhage behind the eye, and so that can't be corrected. But I keep going to my doctor over there, and he keeps checking me.
Good.
20/20, 20/30.
Wonderful. Better than mine.
At 87. Dr. McKenzie used to say he thought we got a second sight. He was able to see and do things. And when he got rather faint one day there in the clinic, he said, just let me put my head down, and he did. He says, I tell you, honey, he says, don't go getting any shots, and don't do anything for me if I pass out around here. He says, that's the way I want to go. I want to go with my boots on. And he was getting up one morning, and Dr. Ed Dallas told me he was getting up to go to work, and he was putting his boots on when he just, that was it. That's the way he wanted to go. That's the way Colquitt wanted to go. He wasn't permitted that. He had to go to Riverside a while. He couldn't go to any place better than he had there. I couldn't have gone to any place better than I have over here. And some people said, no, you can't stay here. You have to go to Riverside. I said, oh, you can't scare me. I said, I was out there. A lot of things. And that's in the pageant that Freddie Davis has now. I said, don't you show that to anybody except the family. I said, the film is faulty. It was the first senior Mrs. Buggy Days pageant that they'd ever had, and it was held last September 14th. And they really had to dig hard because they couldn't get anyone to represent Riverside. And I'd been a volunteer there when my husband was alive. And so Donna Allen asked me, and I said, Donna, if you'll help me, I'll do it. But I said, I know the children wouldn't want me to do it because I didn't feel able. I wasn't as well then as I am now. And she helped me, and we did it.
Now, what did you do?
I was in a beauty pageant.
Oh, okay.
Age 86. Can you believe it? I didn't see anything beautiful about me. My full leg wasn't as well as it is now, and I limped. And I had this long dress on. I was afraid I was going to trip on somebody's new shoes that they gave me to walk on. And they had to give me those because I couldn't wear those big McMahon shoes. And so with Margie Daniel and Donna Allen and the support of my members of my church, Peggy, Becky Bolton, and one or two others came over there with her, and some of my children's helpers, Kate and Donnie Edgins. Donnie couldn't go, but Kate and her son went. And just a few from here went. They didn't even know about it.
Did
it
you
was
go?
At Milner.
Oh, at Milner.
It was Barnesville Buggy Days, but they had to have it in a high school gymnasium where there was no air conditioning and nothing but hard benches for the audiences. They didn't have over 100 there, but they didn't charge but $1 a seat. And we went over there and had that. And I said, of all things, I never wanted to be in a beauty pageant. But I was in it. And I told Donna, I said, well, I have one talent, and that's to play the piano and raise children. So she found a small one from somebody, and that wouldn't do. It just was too small. And they couldn't put a piano on the stage. It was only about this wide. It had been held. They had a junior Miss pageant the night before, and they left up all the decorations and the backdrops and everything from them. And so we were fortunate to have that. And that's recorded on the tape that I have of the beauty pageant. But Freddie Davis was there right now. And the girl that was in charge of it was tremendous. It was her first attempt, and she tried so hard. She worried so much about all of us. And everybody was so good to us, and I had a good time.
That sounds like.
I really enjoyed it.
Good.
I enjoyed it more than I was misused, because I wasn't misused. They gave me every consideration. I was the eldest in that group. And the other two dear ladies that were close to my age, one of them was still out of Clearview in a wheelchair. And I've got the record of that in the other room, but yeah, I could show you the pictures of the thing. I've got that down here.
Okay. Oh, what a nice room for an office.
This was his office. This was his scout place.